In part one of this series, began by discussing the spiritual meaning of numbers and the patterns they produce. Though it may seem simplistic, one pattern that has become obvious throughout this series is that produced by the numbers 2 and 3. Note what Stephen Jones states regarding the spiritual meaning of 2. Beit is a house or household in Hebrew. God established the household with Adam and Eve, two people in a marriage. This provided direction, a double witness in the family to know the will of God. It takes 2 points to make a line and establish direction. The number 2 signifies either division or a double witness. God established 2 covenants in the Bible. First is a double witness of truth, but also to establish direction. Going from the Old Covenant to the New Covenant shows a progression of revelation from the lesser to the greater. This same principle is found with Hagar and Sarah, Ishmael and Isaac, with Jacob and Israel, with David and Saul, and in the New Testament, in the contrast between Saul and Paul. In each case, there is division, with a resulting conflict between the 2 characters. Yet, also God establishes the pattern of moving from one point to another. Now, here's what Stephen Jones says about the number 3. Gamel is a camel in Hebrew. It signifies to be lifted up. Pride is its negative side. Being glorified or elevated to a position of authority is its positive side. The number 3 is the number of divine fullness, completeness, or perfection. Whereas it takes 2 lines to fix a position by an XY axis, it takes 3 to give shape and to enclose a geometric area, in this case, a triangle. Because the law establishes truth on the basis of 2 or 3 witnesses, the number 3 may be considered to be a complete witness. 2 witnesses are enough to establish truth, but 3 brings completeness, clarity, and shape to it. 2. A double witness. 3. A complete witness. 2 people in a marriage, denoting a covenant. Just as there is Adam and Eve, so we have 2 covenants destined to be joined together through Christ. Is there a male and female aspect to the covenants? There is. Please note the following. Then to Adam he said, because you have heeded the voice of your wife. So Sarai said to Abram, see now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing children. Please, go into my maid, perhaps I shall obtain children by her. And Abram heeded the voice of Sarai. But he who was of the bondwoman was born according to the flesh, and he of the free woman through promise, which things are symbolic. For these are the 2 covenants. As we see, Adam and Abraham listened to the voice of their wives, while Paul states that the 2 covenants are symbolized by Sarah and Hagar. The female aspect of the covenants is obvious, and also the male is typified by Adam and Abraham. Male as in sowing seed, female as in receiving seed, and the result? With Adam, it's Cain and Abel, and with Abraham, it's Ishmael and Isaac. Now, consider the following. And Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. With Adam, there's just Eve, but with Abraham, there's Sarah and Hagar. If Sarah and Hagar represent the 2 covenants, then what does Eve represent? The same. But in Eve, the 2 covenants are seen as one, while in Sarah and Hagar, they're seen as 2. Remember, 2 signifies either division or a double witness. So we begin with Eve as the mother of all living, representing both covenants in one. then progressing to Sarah and Hagar, where the two covenants are divided in their respective purposes. When we come to Christ, the two covenants are joined once more. What starts as one becomes two in order to become one again. This pattern is actually set forth on the 6 days of creation. Through all of this, unity is stressed, which of course denotes marriage, which of course denotes covenant. In Adam and Eve, we began with the tree of knowledge, which is the first stage of the process to bring us to the tree of life. After all, you cannot possess the spiritual nature of the law until you first have the law. But let me back up a moment. I may be confusing you a bit by stating that Eve represents the two covenants, when this series has shown that the tree of knowledge and tree of life actually represent them. But here's how we clarify this. In Galatians, when speaking of Sarah and Hagar as the covenants, Paul says that Hagar, the old covenant, corresponds to the present Jerusalem, while Sarah corresponds to Jerusalem above, who is our mother. So, to be specific, Abraham's two wives represent the recipients of the seed of God's word in the form of both covenants, old and new. The covenant must be between two or more, and in this case, between male and female, signifying the covenant of marriage. Speak of the covenants, then, is to also speak of Jerusalem, both flesh and spirit. Eve represents both in one, while Sarah and Hagar represent one in both. I know, that messes with the head a little, doesn't it? As the illustration shows, there's a third element that brings the two covenants together, which is the law, common to both and symbolized by the fig tree. Since the giving of the law falls under the old covenant and its spiritual nature under the new, then this makes perfect sense. The law is spiritual. But now, let's go one step deeper regarding this third element. In the illustration, we see the cross situated between the covenants. In Romans 7:14, in the middle. Why? Because what makes the law spiritual is self-sacrifice. And of course, Jesus died on the cross, exemplifying this very thing. But in the story of Adam and Eve, the third element between the covenants, that is, between the tree of knowledge and tree of life, is something or someone else entirely. It's the serpent. Note once more what Stephen Jones states about the spiritual meaning of three. It signifies to be lifted up. Pride is its negative side. This brings us here. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man be lifted up. What does the serpent on the brass pole represent? The law in the hands of man and his pride. What is the solution for this? Self-sacrifice, which is a byproduct of humility. This is why the pole is brass, denoting judgment. Where was the serpent lifted up? In the wilderness. What is the purpose of the wilderness? To humble us. What is the wilderness synonymous with? 40. Conception to birth. God will have fruit. Much more to think about, my friends, so I'll close at this point. Please feel free to like, comment, or subscribe to my channel. And I sincerely thank you for being a part of Grain of Wheat Publishing.